All right, this is Ben Krause here to talk to you about the upcoming vote that's going to happen tomorrow, 9/12. So that is September 12th, 2023. The U.S. Senate will be voting on the nomination for the Deputy Secretary, Department of Veterans Affairs, Tanya Bradshaw. And so some of you may know I have been pretty vocal about her nomination. I think a fair amount of us in the veteran community, the more that we dig in, the more that we're concerned and disappointed about her selection. And so I want to talk to you about that because if we do not do something as the veteran population, we are going to get ourselves into a bit of a snafu. That snafu is going to deal with your privacy rights, and I'm going to talk about that today because to me, there are a few things more important than privacy, especially when we are in this digital age and talking about our veterans' records, our veterans' health records. Who has those veterans' health records? What they're going to do with them? There's a lot of questions that we should be asking this nominee that got passed through very quickly through the Senate Veterans Affairs Committee and now is going to be voted on tomorrow. Today was the cloture vote that moved her for a full Senate vote tomorrow. Very interesting as far as how the vote broke down because there were quite a few senators that were, I don't want to say perplexing, but definitely cast their votes in a direction that we thought was a little bit surprising. So if you're watching this and you happened to, hang on a second, I think it might be a little bit too loud. If you're watching this and feel like you may want to get involved, I would really encourage you to take the time to call Senator Sinema, Senator Collins, Senator Rounds, Senator Manchin, and let them know what you think. We're pretty concerned on our end, and there are going to be a lot of folks calling these senators tomorrow because we're concerned about what they're going to be doing. There were, let's see here, one of the surprises was the vote. Who was that? One of the senators from New Jersey, Senator Menendez, curiously broke ranks with the Senate Democrats and voted against this nominee. He was the only Democrat to go the other direction. Senator Rounds of South Dakota and Senator Collins of Maine both voted for her. As some of you may know, Senator Sinema is an independent now. She used to be a Democrat. And Senator Manchin is a Democrat from West Virginia. We would really like them to become educated about some of the concerns that we have in the veteran community about this nominee. I'm going to talk about that here. Again, we've been really vocal on disabledveterans.org, and for that purpose, my name is Benjamin Krause. I am a veteran rights attorney. I am a disabled veteran myself and a journalist. I represent Veterans Against Department of Veterans Affairs and have had quite a few run-ins with how the agency interprets and or misinterprets the, hang on a second, I may have an issue with the sound, interprets and or misinterprets the privacy rights of veterans. We have been treated like cattle. We have had our records pimped out to a variety of different folks. It's really concerning how our records and our information have been privatized and given over to these different corporations for different purposes over the past decade. Very concerning. This candidate, from what we can tell, is not going to stop that process and in fact seems to have an anti-privacy position based on some of her decisions and some of what the agency has done with respect to a recent scandal involving Views. Views is a system that the agency implemented without required proper Privacy Act protocol being followed starting in 2017, 2018, and moving until today, we're finding out. And so Tanya Bradshaw presently is the VA Chief of Staff. She has been nominated to be the Deputy Secretary. There's been a lot of hoopla about this nomination because a lot of individuals are very excited to have a woman be the first appointed or confirmed woman for that position. we're all very excited about the idea of women, being in all kinds of roles within leadership. But we're, at least in my camp, a lot of the people we've been talking to are concerned and wondering why this one happens to be the one that has been selected, given her lack of credentials, lack of prior training, and lack of experience leading as a leader an organization of the size of the Department of Veterans Affairs. More troubling than that is her access to and knowledge of these various scandals involving whistleblower and veteran information. And now it appears she's been behind some of the obfuscation with Senate oversight and Senator Chuck Grassley's office. I've been helping behind the scenes in various ways, trying to pull information together and doing research, and been writing about, and been covering, and listening to some of the concerns that whistleblowers have been sharing. And man, I'll tell you, it's not looking good. So having said all that, I'm going to jump right into the article. So this is something that I have written. Let's see here. Let me move so I can see the article a little bit better than what I can see right now. Sorry, give me a quick second. So we are, again, asking anyone watching this, anyone who cares, anyone who's pro-privacy, pro-veteran, if you happen to be watching this, I would really love for you to reach out to the 4 senators that are at the top of the screen and let them know your thoughts. We would really appreciate that. I think it would be very beneficial if you happen to be concerned about what these individuals are doing. Definitely. Hey, Sarah, appreciate the comment. What these individuals are doing, please, definitely call these 4 senators and let them know that you're concerned. Let them know that they really need to dig in, because there's a lot more to the story than what we're aware of. And so we definitely want you to be informed, to reach out. Sarah Bonner, so if you happen to be watching this and you want to comment, I can see comments in Facebook or YouTube. I cannot see comments in live time in LinkedIn. So it's just one of those things. So if you happen to be watching this and you want to tune in and you want to maybe ask a question or something like that, feel free to do so, and I'm definitely happy to read it off. So Sarah Bonner asks, was that the system to allow the VA and private community care facilities to be able to see records? I'm not totally sure which one that is referencing, so hang on a second, I'm going to add this over here. So Sarah asked this comment. Let's see here. I'm going to just move it over a little bit. There we go. So Sarah asks, was that the system to allow the VA and private care community? Okay. So I don't have an answer as far as that goes, Sarah, because I'm not familiar with exactly what story. There's been a problem with these types of issues from across the VA. So it's possible, I don't know if that is exactly the same one. But here's basically how Views works. Views, or how it's actually been working, rather, maybe not necessarily what it was intended to do. But what we know about Views now is that Views is basically a collation point or data point where the communications from veterans, including veterans who are making confidential complaints, whistleblowers who are making confidential complaints and trying to get help from senators, congressmen, you name it. What we found out is that these communications have been going into the system, and frequently what has been going on is in instances where the communications are not necessarily or thought to be confidential. They're actually not confidential, and they're being reported in a way that the information is being disclosed right to the VA. So if you're concerned about whistleblower retaliation or problems of that type, well, there's a good reason to be concerned, because that information may end up there. So having said all that, what I've been doing is writing about some of these particular issues here. I'm going to move this over so I can see it a little bit better. There we go. Okay, sorry about that. So this is the article I wrote. This is titled VA Nominee Tanya Bradsher in Hot Water Inside the Brewing IT Scandal and Its Implications for Veterans. So what this basically means is that there is an ongoing investigation. We released the information as far as this draft report that the agency issued to obfuscate, in my opinion, what was going on and confuse any of the readers. And by readers, they're really worried about what the Senate thinks, because Dennis McDonough really wants Tanya Bradsher to be his number 2 at the VA. She will become the number 2 at the VA. And then when he steps down, which Leo Shane wrote about in one of his articles, I think in Military Times, then she will become the Secretary of the VA. So Tanya Bradsher's bio, I'm going to give it a real high level here. She served in the military, retired 20 years. She educated at D-Info School in public relations, propaganda, things of that nature, and then served at the behest of the Pentagon and other parts of the Army, and worked in the Office of Detainee Affairs. And you can see some of her comments and the things that she was responsible for essentially spinning at that point in time. Again, like from my perspective, I find it to be a little bit alarming what we have learned, but with respect to Bradsher's background, like, she was responsible for covering up or spinning issues related to our abuse of detainees from 2009 through whatever. I don't know if that actually really stopped, but her role there changed, where she then, from that point, went to the National Security Council. From the National Security Council, she worked under Dennis McDonough underneath in the Obama administration. Through 2012, when she retired. She worked for now VA Secretary McDonough while he was at NSC, and she did public affairs in some capacity, or communications, strategic communications in that context. Then she moved out, retired, and worked for the Obama administration, I believe through 2013, 2014. And from that point, that's when Dennis McDonough, I think it was in 2013, 2014, jumped out of the National Security Council, and then for the remainder of the presidency of Barack Obama, was the chief of staff. So Dennis McDonough was chief of staff under Obama, who, as we all know, I mean, a lot of people speculate that there's a reason why President Obama didn't leave Washington, D.C. But anyway, so we know that the secretary worked under the Obama administration and chief of staff. Tanya Bradsher worked under him in public affairs, and in that capacity with communications and communications management. So we know that then when Dennis McDonough took over, she came over and helped with the NSA in some capacity, doing some kind of recruiting at the agency, was a consultant, and then was selected. And I'm skipping over a couple things between the Obama administration and that point, and then was appointed to be the VA chief of staff without what I would call appreciable experience. She worked in that capacity in a very limited way for a congressman for a brief period. But aside from that, her entire career has been predominantly public affairs, public relations, propaganda. So she then came out of the VA, helped with the NSA for a little bit in some kind of recruiting capacity and communications. I'm not sure exactly what it was. And then was selected to be the chief of staff. She's run chief of staff at the VA for about 2 years, since 2021, and was then appointed, or selected rather, as nominee for the DepSec role. She supported the deputy secretary before her, which was Donald Remy. Donald Remy stepped down very quietly after being selected and nominated for the role of DepSec in April. This was after the massive security and usage and user interface problems that we've seen with the Cerner system. And the Cerner system is what is being used to upgrade the electronic health records of veterans. So Donald Remy stepped down, and then now Tanya Bradsher is nominated. So in fun news, since I've been reporting on Tanya Bradsher's nomination, we've noticed that at least it appears that there's a Ukrainian company that is engaging in what some call as negative SEO or black hat SEO against my website. So that's always fun. So we've seen a lot of spammy links being directed at the website ever since I started talking about Tanya Bradsher and our concerns about her lack of qualifications for the role. I mean, at the end of the day, She doesn't have formalized like management experience, like an MBA, like running a big company, something like that. Instead, she doesn't have that background. And so now she's going to be essentially the chief operating officer for the Department of Veterans Affairs, which is the second largest agency in the country, behind the DoD as far as budget, and one of the largest as far as the amount of people that are basically working there. So now she's going to be in charge. If she's selected tomorrow, again, her vote is tomorrow. I encourage anybody watching this, reach out to their senator, reach out to the 4 senators that are top of the screen. Let them know that you have some concerns. If you do have concerns about privacy, your privacy, whistleblowers' privacy, and what this nominee has already done. We already know how she's probably going to do. We're probably going to see a lot of failures, a lot of scandals, and a lot of cover-ups coming into this election cycle. I mean, if you think about it in a way, who better to put in charge of the VA than a spin doctor like Tanya Bradsher? Why not? So anyway, coming into the election, there's going to be more scandals coming up. There's a lot of IT failures. The agency is in the process of trying to get approved and push out T4NG Generation 2. So it's a $60 billion IT contract. And yet, as part of that, we see this view scandal cropping up out of the T4NG original contract, which was $23 billion or whatever, from many of the same companies that are going to be going after the big bucks in the $60 billion IT contract that they're trying to push through right now at the agency. So anyway, having said all that, I want to talk with you a little bit about this article. So what we get into, and again, if you want to see this in depth, go to disabledveterans.org. It's on the homepage. But what I want to talk to you a little bit are about some of what we know with her person she's replacing, Donald Remy. So one of the coincidences that we noted is Donald Remy had originally run for a role of general counsel for the Department of the Army, okay? So he didn't make it, and there were a lot of reasons why, but apparently the late Senator John McCain, who I believe Kirsten Sinema has his old seat, or however that works. So Senator John McCain at the time called into question Remy and Remy's nomination, concerned because Remy had left off his resume that he used to work for Fannie Mae. When we started to dig in, and I'm just going to quote this because I thought it was useful information to know. So some of you watching this may not remember that there were a lot of scandals involving Fannie Mae around this time in 06 to 08, where from 2000 to 2006 there were a lot of accounting problems and accounting errors that were noted and had come up through a variety of different scandals, where Fannie Mae had disclosed, here I'm going to quote this. So we know here, so his nomination is pending, and this was at the time, right, in 2008, 2009, but at least 2 Republicans on the Senate Armed Services Committee, John McCain of Arizona and Mel Martinez of Florida, have raised questions about why Fannie Mae wasn't included on Mr. Remy's work history. So imagine that. So Mr. Remy had this omitted from his work history when he ran for this particular position. And when he worked for Fannie Mae, he worked as head of their oversight, and then there apparently was no oversight, right? So, or at least the oversight that they were giving was a little bit questionable. And so Mr. Martinez, so Senator Martinez, cited, quote, serious concerns, unquote, about Remy's, quote, lack of candor, end quote. And by omitting that, and they in turn wanted to talk with Remy after that and have a second round of questions because the information was withheld from them originally. And so imagine that. So now what we have is this enormous views scandal, which has hundreds of thousands of records about veterans, about whistleblowers that were not disclosed, that are not held in an appropriate way, that are not properly secured or weren't properly secured for 6 years. So from 2017 until right now, and only right now, even though the VA has known about this problem for 4 years, since 2019, Only right now are they finally starting to fix it, and even then, they haven't. Apparently, have lost the log files to see if certain whistleblower data was illegally accessed. Things like that, super shady stuff. And rather than call Bradshaw back in to explain herself, explain her knowledge about this particular scandal, nothing has apparently happened. Other than, I guess she's going to get promoted. So fantastic, right? I guess that's just kind of the way it works. So now, if she does get the vote tomorrow, so tomorrow is the final vote as to whether she's going to get this job or not, then she'll be responsible not only for making sure the views thing, gets resolved, but then also for the Cerner Oracle debacle. And everybody knows that's a train wreck. You talk to anybody in the VA, and that is a train wreck of train wrecks, where they basically privatized our health records, put them into these systems. The systems don't really work, and now it's in Oracle's databases. Well, that's fantastic. Don't you want all your health records basically in the equivalent of like Facebook? That's fantastic. I mean, not to say that they're going to get leaked, but Oracle does do a lot of marketing, and I don't know. There's a lot of questions with that particular relationship anyway. But getting back to the Tanya Bradshaw nomination, I'm going to read out loud what Senator Grassley wrote. And so Senator Grassley, as many of you know, is one of the leading forces behind whistleblower accountability and making sure that whistleblowers are not retaliated against by not just the Department of Veterans Affairs, but also other agencies. So I'm going to read you what Grassley says about this and why he believes a no vote is super important. And I'm a disabled veteran. I generally consider myself an independent voter. I like to vote for the best candidate. I don't necessarily vote for a Republican or a Democrat. However, what I will tell you is that if Chuck Grassley was a bit younger and running for president, I'd probably consider him, because I'll tell you what, this guy is made of steel. So anyway, according to Senator Grassley in this particular nomination, I'm just going to quote it and read it out loud so you guys can kind of get an understanding of what this says, because I know people don't like to read anymore. So this is from Senator Grassley, right? I've just learned that the majority leader, that is Senator Chuck Schumer of the great state of New York, has filed for cloture on the nomination of Ms. Tanya Bradshaw to be Deputy Secretary of the Department of Veterans Affairs. In addition to my remarks on the Senate floor on July 18th, I'd like to provide more context to my decision to oppose her nomination, especially in light of new information that has come to my attention. Ms. Bradshaw, if confirmed, would be second in command. Second in command, people. Second in command. This is not just some fluff role. She would be second in command at a deeply troubled agency. Both the VA and Ms. Bradshaw, in her current role as Chief of Staff, have shown repeated indifference to congressional oversight. Again, people, indifference to congressional oversight. So what's going to happen with your benefits? What's going to happen with your privacy rights? I don't know, because there won't be accountability if she gets this position, or whatever we get. Well, it'll be what we deserve, right? Because we didn't do enough to block it. Anyway, records show that she played a key role in the VA's deficient response to my investigation of VA corruption that I launched in 2021. His investigation into VA corruption has been going on since 2021. Another of my investigations has revealed that she also failed to secure sensitive veterans' health information, PII, and whistleblower information at the VA's correspondence system, VA Integrated Enterprise Workflow Solution, also called VIEWS, which is under her direct authority. It's under her direct authority. My oversight has shown that VIEWS exposes veterans' private and sensitive information to thousands of VA employees, only a small number of whom are authorized to see it. Well, that's nice. That's nice. That surgery that you were talking about, or the personal problems that are in your health records, or other things that have been shared and maybe somehow ended up in a complaint at your senator's office or whatever. This health information is in VIEWS. And Bradshaw falsely told the Senate that The health information isn't in there. So this is great. The VA and Ms. Bradsher provided misleading information about that as well, which I will discuss here. As part of Ms. Bradsher's committee proceedings, she responded to questions for the record about veterans' medical records stored in VIEW's correspondence system at the VA. Ms. Bradsher provided misleading and often contradictory answers to senators' questions. So she either doesn't get it, even though she's responsible for it, or she's a liar. So she's either inept or she's a fraud. I don't know. You pick, Anyway, when asked about veterans' medical records exposed in VIEW, she responded the VIEW system doesn't, quote, handle medical records. Well, that's false. This was deeply misleading as my staff had already verified that sensitive records are stored in VIEWs and often exposed improperly for thousands of VA employees to see. And that's not to mention not just the VA employees. We don't know how many government contractors see this stuff that are part of that T4NG contract. Who knows how many people actually see these records? Going on, when whistleblowers last year informed the Office of Special Counsel about these VIEW's privacy flaws, OSC found a, quote, substantial likelihood of wrongdoing, end quote, related to potential violations of federal privacy laws. On August 2nd, 2022, more than 1 year ago, OSC directed VA to investigate and report back within 60 days. And I'll show you that report, folks, in a little bit, but the report did not show up until August 8th or August 9th, 2023, an entire year later, more than a year later. Going on to the remainder of what Senator Grassley has to say, even before Ms. Bradsher's committee hearing was held, the VA had already admitted to OSC that the VIEW's allegations raised by the whistleblowers to Ms. Bradsher's office last year, were true. It's not all in our imagination as VA tried to mislead the U.S. Senate into thinking. Now, that's interesting, right? So the VA is supposed to be nonpartisan. It's supposed to be looking out for veterans. And yet they're engaged in a full-on block and tackle to get Tanya Bradsher into this role, to include apparently lying or misleading the committee about it, which, again, I thought that was a crime. But maybe, we're in Biden's America right now, so I'm not sure what a crime is anymore. So, and again, I'm saying that as an independent voter, not a Republican, not a Democrat. I've voted for both parties. What we're seeing right now, I don't even know. So I guess, maybe federal agencies are kind of off the hook at the moment, where accountability is just going to be out of reach for a little bit yet. So having said that, anyway, even before Ms. Bradsher's committee hearing was held, the VA had already admitted to OSC that the VIEW's allegations raised by whistleblowers to Ms. Bradsher's office last year were true. Oh, they're true. But you're still not done fixing it? I don't understand. It's not all in our imagination, as VA again, I misread this, or I just read this, rather. The VA admitted as much in its own letter to OSC May 26th of this year, before Ms. Bradsher's VA hearing, stating that the VA's OSC-ordered investigation at the onset of the investigation had already fully substantiated allegations whistleblowers raised that, quote, VA officials are violating the Privacy Act of 1774 and the provisions of VA Directive 6402 and VA Handbook 6500 by improperly storing the personal identifiable information of whistleblowers, employees, and veterans in the VIEW system of records, because such sensitive information is not marked as sensitive and is therefore accessible to all VA employees that have access to VIEWs. In other words, VA admitted that it violated the federal privacy laws related to VIEWs by not securing sensitive data, but Ms. Bradsher withheld this key fact from the committee when questioned, and the VA insinuated otherwise in its last-minute misleading memo circulated by the committee majority on the eve of her committee rubber stamp. Despite their legal obligation to be candid with Congress and not to omit material facts from their statements to this body. This deeply misleading memo to members of the Senate Veterans Affairs Committee right before the vote on Ms. Bradsher failed to even address the VA's preliminary findings, and it misled the committee by minimizing data security issues and views. Now that is awesome, right? Imagine that. And now Tanya Bradsher is going to get promoted, and she's the one responsible for all your data, folks, and everything else. She's going to be the one out there making sure things get done. Are we going to get, is it going to be done right? Like, what's going to happen? What's going to happen? I don't know. I am not sure. I am worried. By the way, if you're watching this, I've been going on for about 30 minutes. And if you want to have a comment that you want to ask, you need to leave it in Facebook. Oh, hey, Nancy. Thanks. Appreciate it. So you need to leave it in Facebook. I will quote it, put it up here. So thank you for that. And then if you have any questions at all, happy to respond. If you're not familiar with who I am and this happened to come across your feed, my name is Benjamin Krause. I am a veteran rights attorney. I do VA benefit law as well, and you can read about what I do as a journalist on disabledveterans.org. My law firm is benjaminkrauselaw.com. Those are the ways to get a hold of me. The information is right there on the websites. But yeah, this is big issue, man, and it's been rolling since about 2017. And the Biden administration has really just accelerated it. They haven't even slowed it down. So we have kind of a big train wreck coming, and I don't know what to say, but these are our records. These are our disability compensation, confidential information about us that you may not want a spouse or some other person to come across. You may not want a jaded VA employee, to come after you, which has happened. There's a long list of VA employees, folks, who decide they're gonna, go get somebody digging through your stuff and making things up and coming after you. You also have other problems where VA employees would go into record systems, apparently like Views, grab veteran data, and then sell it on the black market. I don't know how that makes you feel. It makes me feel pissed off. Makes me feel real pissed off. And so I see this, and why? Why do people like this continue to just get promoted? Why are they put into these positions? So anyway, if you're watching this, I have the contact information for 4 senators that I want you to call. Senator Sinema. These are also their Twitter handles. Send them tweets. If you're concerned and you want to educate them about how you feel about your benefits, your information, about having people that lack appropriate qualifications being put into senior leadership roles at the VA, give these folks a call. Tell them that you're not going to take it anymore. That you're sick of it. It's just not right. We're in this system that just treats us like dogs. It treats us like rats. You're nothing but a lion stinking veteran. How dare you get in my way? That's how they treat us. And now they have our data in this health system. And apparently, come to find out, it's one of the most valuable data sets for medical research on the planet. But veterans aren't going to get any of those royalties. Those are going to go to their friends at Amazon and Oracle, Booz Allen Hamilton, some of these other companies that, are in the right positions to really know what to do with that data. So anyway, having said that, take a look here. If you get time, read what my friend Peter Rizzo had to say. So he is a certified fraud expert and VA whistleblower, blew the whistle on VA, and no longer works at the agency, but he was on a radio show with us over the weekend, We the People Radio. Check it out if you get a minute. They're out of California. Really good people. I think they have a radio show every weekend on Sundays. Anyway, it was a great time. We got to talk about this and some of our concerns. Even if Tanya Bradsher gets confirmed tomorrow, which we hope she doesn't, but even if she does, this raises a lot of awareness that we are watching what the VA is doing. we are getting smart about how these IT companies are scraping our data. We're, hey, Steve. Oh, dude, I love your picture. Uh, appreciate that. That's Bill Murray there, I think. It looks like Bill Murray uh, from one of his movies. Anyway, so uh, getting in, anyway, so check it out. Go to disabledveterans.org. It's one of the articles I published on Friday. Check it out. I mean, I'll just kind of get into it a little bit, but basically, the general gist of it is, uh, and again, Rizzo's like a certified fraud expert. He's busted a couple scandals, wide open. He stands up for veterans, and is not afraid to take it in the teeth, just like me. And this dude's tough, and so anyway, he wrote in to the OSC about this report. I'm going to get into the report in a little bit. I'm just going to go through the whole thing, and then I'm going to put this out on the website. I just hope that you can share it with somebody. Like if you happen to have a minute and you want to call these numbers for these senators and just let them know, hey, I'm a veteran. I'm worried. I have rights. I'm a human being. You're a human being, even though you're a senator. And hey, how about we agree to not have people in positions of authority that don't give a rip about privacy? It seems like a fair thing, But anyway, so here's what Rizzo said. I'm going to jump in here to, and when you see the report, you'll understand this comment. But he jumps into it. Quote, aside from the shamelessly misleading executive summary, the body of the VA's July 21st, 2023 report captures the myriad of very serious and consequential missteps by VA and Salesforce regarding the security of sensitive personal information. What I found most interesting is the role of OIT and the fact that this particular office was asked to investigate, considering that the views system was created and is maintained pursuant to a contract with Salesforce that is maintained through OIT. So VA is investigating itself, and even the part of VA that's responsible for the contract was the one that they relied on to investigate, which is, by the way, against the law. There are laws in place to prevent the VA from doing this because of a scandal in 2006 where, I want to say it was millions of veterans' records were stolen. And, so there's laws in place to prevent VA from covering up by doing their own research in-house, okay? And so anyway, we're perplexed about that. Like, we come to the table with some pretty reasonable expectations about the law, like don't share my stuff illegally. And the VA is like, yeah, whatever, So anyway, going on to the data breach, page 17 of the report, and I'll talk about this a little bit later, states, quote, it should be emphasized that there is no evidence that views vulnerabilities discussed in the report. Key word here, by the way, discussed in this report. Well, what is not discussed in the report? But okay, I digress. So going on, I'll just reread it. It should be emphasized right here. It should be emphasized that there is no evidence that views vulnerabilities discussed in this report resulted in a privacy breach or has caused harm to veterans, whistleblowers, or their families, unquote. So Rizzo responds to this erroneous and in my opinion, fraudulent quote that somebody, probably not the inspector or the investigator that did this report, but probably OGC slipped in. Or somebody else that's a wordsmith. I don't know who might have done that, but anyway. So Rizzo responds, this finding is an error. Simply, the instant investigation did not examine privacy breaches and the harm caused to veterans, whistleblowers, and their families due to views security flaws. The assigned investigator is without the capacity, authority, training, and jurisdiction required to conduct such an investigation. They didn't do it. Thus, VA has no basis to assert that there exists no evidence of a privacy breach or resulting harm. And I'll talk about that because they actually do have that evidence, but, they just chose to ignore it and then lie about it in this report. and then circulated the report with the Senate, and the Senate thought, "Oh, there's nothing to see here." Curiously, although that happened, there's been a lot of pushback, and right now the cloture vote went through 49 yay, 44 nay, with one Democrat joining Republicans, which is kind of interesting. So anyway, countless whistleblowers, here I'm reading from right here, countless whistleblowers have come forward alleging otherwise unexplained acts of retaliation, theft, vandalism, threats, and physical harm after blowing the whistle. Views may very well be the source of information that fueled these illegal acts, but not until that is investigated properly will we know for certain. And again, basically what happened is the VA during this investigation magically wasn't able to view log files. So the log files that are required to be there for any kind of system of records like this just magically weren't there for the investigation. So then they're able to be like, oh, well, now no evidence. Well, you had to look for it, you know. But, you know, if you leave your computer off and then you conclude, well, there's no evidence because I didn't see it. Oh, okay. Well, that's smart. Anyway, Freedom of Information Act and Privacy Act requests, VA claims it was, quote, unable to substantiate, end quote, allegation 3, which asserts that VA officials have failed to include views in FOIA and Privacy Act requests in federal violation of federal law and agency directive and handbook provisions, end quote. This finding is invalid and should be changed to substantiated. First, consider that the report notes that VA's FOIA office pointed to only 3 instances in which views was searched for responsive documents, even though VA processes many thousands of FOIA and Privacy Act requests annually. I would almost go as far as to say hundreds of thousands, but tens of thousands at least every single year of Privacy Act and FOIA. And let's not forget all the litigation that goes on with the agency where they're required to search for discovery. And I can almost guarantee that they haven't been looking through views for responsive information for discovery purposes, which is a violation of law. Anyway, so second, consider that, I mean, most people didn't even know views existed. So it was an undisclosed database that nobody knew about and wasn't properly disclosed in a proper system records notice, even through the one that they came out with in 2022. It still wasn't properly noticed, and the one that was inadequate. Anyway, I digress. So second, consider that in a FOIA request dated August 6, 2021, from Jason Foster of Empower Oversight, VA was asked to provide all records related to the VA's receipt of, discussions related to, processing of, and response to Senator Grassley's April 2nd, 2021 letter to Secretary McDonough and or his July 20th, 2021 letter to Secretary McDonough. VA's response to this FOIA failed to include responsive documents housed in views. Housed in views. Huh. Well, that's interesting. I know this because I personally saw those records in views while employed at VA and have since come to learn the VA did not include them in its response to Mr. Foster. Well, that's interesting. It sounds like a little bit more. Is this really misleading or is this perjury? You know, at what point do you kind of cross the line, or is misleading perjury? I think it might be, at least in this instance. Therefore, it can be substantiated that VA officials have failed to include views in FOIA and Privacy Act requests in violation. I mean, give me a break. 3. We found it in 3, and therefore we've done it for all. Come on. They think we're stupid folks. These guys in the VA think that they're so smart and we're dumb. It's just amazing, you know. Well, at least if nothing else, they're pretty aware that there's going to be likely no appreciable accountability. And apparently you might even get a promotion if you keep your mouth shut, which is what we had happen here with Ms. Bradshaw. Therefore, it can be substantiated VA officials have failed to include views in FOIA and Privacy Act requests, yada, yada, yada. And then he goes on. Again, this is all on disabledveterans.org. Check that out. If you have a question, I'm just going to rattle through this. It's super late. It's 11 o'clock my time here, 11:15. If you have any questions, I can see comments only in Facebook, and only in YouTube. That is it. So if you happen to see it here, definitely put a comment in. I'll try to respond to it as best I can. I've been following the views issue, a little bit of background through FOIA and other things when it came to my attention a long time ago, over probably 14 months now. And, God works in mysterious ways, and you think about providence. I started working on it. Apparently, this was going on with Mr. Rizzo, who I did not know at the time. And then also Jason Foster, who I did not know at the time, and also Chuck Grassley's office, Senator Grassley's office. Had no idea this was going on. I started doing FOIAs about views because it was obvious that there was something odd about that system and how they were treating it. VA's response to me was perplexing about it when I started requesting public comment. And that was right as the whistleblowers filed their whistleblower complaints at the agency and then complained to the Office of Special Counsel. I had no idea that was going on at the same time. And so I guess my point here is, God works in mysterious ways when it comes to a variety of things. So having said that, let's see here. I'm going to move over to... oops, there we go. Sorry about that. I'm going to move over to the report. So, all right. So, for those of you watching this is the infamous report, and it's dated August 8th. It was actually completed. Let's see here, July 21st, 2023. And then VA had to put their own spin on it, because that's how we roll. And again, personally, I am very troubled and concerned for a lot of reasons. First, that this came from the Office of the Executive Secretariat when this should have been the VA Chief of Staff, but okay. The Office of the Secretariat uses the system, but the Chief of Staff is the one that's responsible. But of course, her name's not going to be on it, Tanya Bradshaw, because, they want to get her promoted into this other role. Now, we have since found out that about a week ago, 2 weeks ago, the person who was functioning as the Executive Secretariat was quietly fired. And then VA, without apparently announcing it publicly, put one of their cronies into that role. So nothing to see here, because that's how the federal government seems to operate these days. They're a bunch of snakes. So anyway, this is the OSC report. This is a draft. It was not public. It was leaked and is now public. So here you go. This is the executive summary. So one of the things that Rizzo points out, and I'm going to point it out here, and again, if you have questions and you're watching this and you're like, this is weird, I want to ask this Kraus guy a question. Ask me a question, man, or woman, or whoever you are. Put it either in YouTube, put it in Facebook, one of the two, and hopefully I'll see it, assuming they don't kill any of these feeds, which, I mean, they might have already, but I don't know. I'm still going to do it. So anyway, here's the executive summary. I just want to point something out. The entire report is 32 pages, including the summary. The report itself is 23 pages. VA created a 7-page introduction, okay, for a 23-page report. Now, if you've ever looked at like an IG investigation, things like that, they may have a few pages at the beginning, but nothing quite like this. This is really something. So as you can see, I'll just scroll through it. They provide the summary that they want people to see and spin it, we want everyone to know for sure that we didn't substantiate this. One of the allegations is kind of interesting if you're watching this and you're concerned about disruptive behavior committees and how the agency is handling that. One of the allegations that I suspect is true, even though they claim it was unable to substantiate, is that the VA police are using are using views according to these whistleblowers. I've talked to at least one of the whistleblowers. I think it's true. I think that there is a informal retaliation scheme, fraud framework, potential RICO, right, being operated by the VA that is harassing people, extorting people, whatever, however you want to put it, and using it to silence whistleblowers, and that there's actually a system that exists. These individuals, and now I believe this too to be true, just based on what I know, and how these systems seem to work, especially if there's no log to verify if you access certain people's data. So VA police, I think, are using views to then go after veterans in the disruptive behavior and reporting system. We also have a strong likelihood that views is being used as a data repository, which is illegal, of First Amendment protected speech to then adjudicate subsequent matters years, a decade later. We have evidence of that we talked about on the radio show Sunday. And so, anyway, totally illegal. These guys are out of control. It's like a retarded version of the FBI, and 702 database that a lot of people are concerned about, rightfully so, and its abuse by the FBI that's been confirmed. Here we have Views, and Views is kind of a database of First Amendment protected speech and whistleblowing and other stuff, and they're using it for adjudicative purposes. I mean, it's just they're a bunch of, I don't know. They're doing it on purpose. At least some of them. Some of them are incompetent. I don't doubt, but I think there are some that it's intentional, and it's really sad. So anyway, that's allegation 4. This is all up on the website, by the way. I put it up into Scribd so that people could see it, because just people got to know what's going on. This is just a small part. There are so many other issues that we're going to be exposing and probably getting into litigation about against the agency down the road, because this is just out of control, and it's time. People got to stand up, and the only way to do it is to litigate. So and to talk about it. Give a call to your elected officials. Do something. Anyway, so. That's the deal on this report, right? As far as like kind of this ridiculous summary. Oh, hey, we're finally on page 1. Yay, page 1, which is numbered page 10. Okay, so page 1, yay, we go through this. I highlighted in advance some of the sections that I thought were offensive or weird, worded curiously. I'm not going to go through the whole thing. If you're curious about how the VA might be retaliating against you, if you're on this call and you have made a complaint to your senator, your congressman, to anybody else, and they've sent it to the agency, right, in some electronic manner or some other thing, if you called the White House hotline, it is in views, folks, and this system is not properly secure. I say this to you right now. Not properly secure. VA has known about this problem or problems like this since 2019. They still haven't done a proper PIA assessment on this. It's insane. PTA, like they just privacy threshold analysis. They didn't do that until I think the first time was in 2021. They've been using it since 2017. No proper system of records notice. They finally referenced views directly, I think in 2021 or 2022. I mean, I'm speechless, like there's just no way, and that's illegal, by the way, like to knowingly maintain a system of records improperly, like the way that they've done. It just either it's like willful incompetence, or it's a crime. It's a misdemeanor and a $5,000 fine if you maintain a system of records improperly. Okay, again, it's a misdemeanor. This is everyone knows this or should know. It's a misdemeanor to maintain a system of records and to not have a system of records notice in the federal government. Just is. You cannot do it without authorization first. And their authorization for a system of records comes from Congress. Again, it comes from Congress. It doesn't come from Joe Biden or Donald Trump or Barack Obama or anybody else. A lot of these fools that have done all this garbage with our stuff, mind you, comes from Congress. And notice and comment, and then they can use it once they give the Senate and House of Representatives the opportunity to see it. So that's how that works, and that's what they haven't been doing. VA has done this with a bunch of stuff. I suspect Views is just one of many, and they're claiming incompetence when really it's a crime. It's a crime to do it. And they've been doing it with your stuff, Hey, Nancy. Oh, okay, let's see here. I filed a complaint with the yeah, so they did do a visit to my VA over my concerns. Well, I mean, that's good that they did something. This is not good at all. Yeah, tell me about it. Yeah. So let me talk about a little bit about what this means. So first of all, we know that they've tossed the executive secretariat under the bus, okay? But I want to point out something here about the scope of this, okay? If you're watching this and you're not mad yet, please get mad. You have to get a little mad, just a little, a titch, just a titch, a scintilla of mad, okay, folks? Quote, considering that over 200,000 cases were created over the past 3 calendar years alone, 200,000 cases, okay, are created. And that's not just the records that are in here, okay? That's just the number of cases. I guarantee each of these cases probably have, on average, at least 20 pages of potentially confidential information attached to each of them, okay? So 200,000 cases. Anyway, at the rate at which the presence of sensitive personal information can be found in cases, the, quote, not sensitive, end quote, cases containing sensitive personal information before remediation actions were implemented is easily estimated to have been, quote, in the multi-thousands at the time the whistleblowers came forward with the allegations. Again, multi-thousands. I don't even know what they mean. 200,000 cases in 3 years. Now, VA has known about this problem and probably known that they should have a system of records notice because they all get training on that every single year or similar training. And so they're like, forgot about that one. I got another doozy that's coming out, by the way, on what they did with their employee records for COVID shots and maintaining their spy system on VA employees. So that's fun. Anyway, so so multi-thousands, right? And then they claim, by the time that they came forward, VA has known through this report, and I'll show it to you in a second. And this is the obfuscation here, So the obfuscation is where they're bringing this information up within the report. Sometimes lacks continuity, and it lacks continuity in a way where they'll bring up like the bad part here, but then they'll skip it for a bit, and then it comes up again up here, And I'll get into that in a second, but this is part of the obfuscation. Then they go down here and they say veterans' names, birth dates, personal address, phone records, 3.6 million records and views, right? 3.6 million. And that Views CCM users have access. Now, one of the things about the users that's interesting is they say that there are only 2,000 users. We know that that number is higher. And let's not forget the government contractors that also have access to this data either. So that's an issue. So now here's the part. This is where I get a little pissy, and we get into page 8 and then into 9. Okay, lack of ownership and accountability. Okay, so I'll just read it off. Officials from the Executive Secretariat responsible for the management of views. Again, they're not responsible for the system, though. That's Tanya Bradshaw's responsibility, the one that's going to become number 2 at the VA, okay? Notice the shift. Well, they're responsible for management of, but who's the boss? Well, it's Tanya Bradshaw. Oh, Well, why isn't she the one being talked about? She's the chosen child. Okay. That makes sense. That makes sense. So anyway, and then they go on. It's their responsibility for proper handling of sensitive personal information and views. CCM rests with the views users, and that policy and required training are adequate. Adequate. Now we also know it's not adequate, so we'll get into that in a little bit. So this is part of their spin, right? The policy are adequate to inform users. Blah blah blah. Yet, based on many views, CCM cases improperly or incorrectly marked as not sensitive found during the investigation. Prior to the recently implemented changes, policy and training alone have not been effective in ensuring users managed sensitive personal information properly. And then another thing, quote, nevertheless, there has been no effort to hold violators accountable. Again, hey, House of Representatives, time to have an investigation, right? There has been no effort to hold violators accountable. But they did fire, the executive secretariat, Well, come on, at that level, the executive secretariat, we know whose fault it is. It's Tanya Bradshaw and the secretary's fault because they knew about it, and then they kicked it over to the IT to investigate, which is completely absurd. The investigation needed to be done by an independent third party per the law. But VA is cool violating laws all the time. They screw veterans out of benefits all the time. So, as far as laws go and they're concerned, they seem to not really care because there is no real accountability. The little guy gets screwed, but the politicians and the politicos, that continue to crawl up each other's backs, that's all fine. Then they say underneath negative impacts of business, considering that an average 260 cases are initiated in views every business day. Do you guys hear that? 260 initiated in views every business day. Okay? These delays could have significantly negative consequences, blah, 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 right? Then they go on talking about the hundreds of thousands of cases and why they couldn't do it because it would just be so hard. It's hard to do things the right way at the VA. It's kind of like when they changed the laws in 2019 and in 2015 to make it harder for a veteran to appeal because it's just so hard for the VA to do their job. So we got to make it harder on the veteran to submit their claims on forms that are difficult or impossible to read and not ADA compliant. But, because it's hard for us to do our job. So, we're going to screw the vets. Anyway, so I'm going to jump down to some of the spots that I think are really concerning. So here we talk about July 2019. So this is where the person they did have do the investigation in IT was provided with, quote, heavily redacted documents. Now, why would they be heavily redacted when it comes to the person doing the investigation? To me, that's very interesting. But anyway, so they withheld this information from the actual investigator. Again, meaning that the investigator was not provided with all the records. They didn't have access to all the information. Okay? So they confirmed that there was a problem before. And then he brings back up the redacted emails. Although the redacted emails indicate that significant resources were mobilized to address the reported privacy concerns, there are no indications that a deliberate process was employed to assess and determine appropriate mitigations or to measure the effectiveness of the actions that were taken. It maybe works, maybe not, wazzy-woozy, I don't know. So, okay, great. This is what we get, good enough for government work, they say, and then they all go home. That's fine. And then, there's more. I can go on and on and on. But on page 15 is where I noticed kind of the sleight of hand that, given my experience as an attorney and also as a journalist, this is when I started to notice the shenanigans, jump out at me. So starting on page 14. So if you're reading this or you're watching this, and you're a little upset or you're wondering like, okay, what is going on? Start on page 14. And again, numbered page 14, not real page numbers, because they have that ridiculous 7-page intro to the 20-page report. Anyway, so system logs, this is where the magic happens, okay? CCM has an integrated logging capability that displays changes made to a case and information changes by users. Quote, but it does not capture instances where a user simply viewed case information or download files. Oh, so you can go into this, and according to the VA, and your clicks and your usage and your viewing of the records that are there isn't logged. In a Salesforce system. Huh. So you're telling me that Salesforce doesn't log things like that, usage? I don't know. I find that hard to believe. And then if you go on here, then they go case and file access history was requested by OIT, which was the responsibility for sustaining, so again, them, OIT Data Transformation Center, that's them, responsible for maintaining the platform and related systems, and which were previously audit reports support of Privacy Act violation investigations. The DTC processed specialized data tools, blah, blah, blah. For audit reports, oh my God, they have the tools for audits. Wait a minute. Oh, but when requested, DTC was unable to produce a report that contained information beyond what was already available within the application's integrated capability. As an explanation, the DTC solution architect shared that the recent transition to a new data tool, again, they don't tell you what it is, so you have no way to double check, was impacting their ability to produce usable audit reports. Well, gosh darn it, Chucky darn. Who would have thunk it? Wow, right in the middle of this investigation that took over a year to finish, apparently, they decided to change the data tools around, so then they couldn't do an audit. Oh, I'm sure it was just a coincidence. That's a coincidence, and then it goes on, even though we were able to substantiate during our investigation that there were incorrectly marked cases that users could easily access sensitive personal information without authorization, we were unable to assess the frequency of such unauthorized accesses, or even if they occurred. I mean, man, if a tree falls in the woods and no one's there to hear it, does it make a sound? Who knows? You don't know. So nobody's there to hear it. Additionally, in light of this auditing limitation, it is unclear how business and system owners are able to accomplish risk mitigation in the form of auditing user activity as stated in the system's privacy impact assessment. So if you're watching this and you know what that means, that's awesome. Most people don't. It took me a long time to kind of figure it out. So the privacy impact assessment is necessary. They're supposed to update it at least yearly, and or if there's changes to the system. They go in here and they claim to have done a PIA, but yet they don't have this ability to audit. Like, you can't do that, but anyway, that's what they said, and then they come back and they claim there's no evidence of a data breach. Well, you don't have any log files to prove it. You didn't look. You obfuscated the information. Well, that's all right. Well, technically it's true. Well, it's a misleading statement. Unethical. It's unethical. You're liars. Okay. Whoever did that in this report is a liar. Anyway, then you go on, and again, the investigator most likely did not have control over this report in its final iteration. I suspect that it was all changed. So, anyway, and then we also find out, oh, by the way, historical is, and they say inactive, but it doesn't matter. They have to keep a paper trail of these systems, right? So they include inactive as if it's like not relevant. No, it's still relevant because we got to know what happened. How long has the problem been going on for? I don't know, because the documents are gone. Why are they gone? I don't know that either. Sorry, a whole lot I don't know. They were not available. Okay, well, were they anywhere else in the VA system? Well, they weren't in EMAS. Where else might they be? Okay, great. So these documents are gone. The assessment, I just got some of those in a FOIA. The most recent ones, but again, where are the original ones? Don't know. Oh, we have to keep those? Yeah, morons. It's called the Privacy Act. Anyway, and then they go on that apparently, despite this like crazy oversight of not being able to do a PIA properly because they don't have the logs for however long, then they say, oh well, neither a privacy impact assessment were required prior to going live in 2018. Why? Why not? Well, prove it, morons. Oh well, we can't really prove why. We just decided it wasn't required because we didn't do it. Oh, okay. No explanation. Just didn't do it. Awesome. And then I have the ATO, the most recent one that they just sent. Oh, but come to find out they had misclassified what they were doing before with views, and therefore that's why they didn't do it. Oh, I see. Again, this gets into a lot of the So what they do here is they steer away from the Privacy Act, where I mean all this is illegal. What they did is completely illegal. It's absurd that they did it this way, but it is what it is. Um, then they get into the policy, and I won't even bother with it. But it's garbage. Um, and then they talk about inconsistencies. So the PIA that is on file, the PTA that is on file, they do confirm that instances and omissions regarding the protection of sensitive information were discovered in these documents. Oh, so they're not done properly, and they're still not done. So I just looked, or at least I'll have to double check, see if they put up an updated one since this report was completed. But yeah, they weren't done right before. And anyway, so you can go through this for yourself, but I think that the spin was profound. And it was obviously done, I think, with a nefarious purpose to support the Tanya Bradshaw nomination. And I think it's dishonest. On 9/11, it's a slap in the face. If you're any of these senators that supported this and you're putting your agenda over, they really want to have a woman, they want to check the woman card here, so they want a woman to be the DepSec, even though we've had DepSec women before, but okay. So they want to have a woman that's confirmed because that's a big deal to get her confirmed. And they want this one. And it's like, this one? Like, there's got to be 1,000 other women that are more qualified than Tanya Bradshaw for this role, even veterans. But that just shouldn't matter because the current secretary is not a veteran. And that didn't seem to, nobody cared. Not a woman either. He's a white dude from Minnesota. Dennis McDonough is a white dude from Minnesota, in case you didn't know, by looking at him. So I'm kind of questioning the equity there and their real intent. But nonetheless, I think that there are a lot of more qualified, many women that are more qualified, many minorities that are more qualified than the current nominee for DepSec. Her background in public affairs and propaganda promulgation does not make her a good candidate for this role. We can see how bad of a candidate she is, in my opinion, based on how this investigation was slow walked and poorly developed. Their responses to it. They're actively misleading and making false statements to the Senate. So they're willing to make false statements to the Senate. Apparently, they know that they're not going to be held accountable because the Senate doesn't support whistleblowers right now. If you've been watching the FBI whistleblower scandals and IRS whistleblower scandals lately, it's really, I'm embarrassed to have voted Democrat in the past by how they're treating whistleblowers and how they're treating the First Amendment. It just blows my mind. But anyway, I wanted to go through this. If you have any questions, my name is Benjamin Krause. I'm a disabled vet. I am a VA accredited attorney. I am a veteran rights attorney. I know quite a bit about what goes on at the VA because I write about it regularly on the blog, disabledveterans.org, and I talk to a fair amount of whistleblowers and veterans about their experiences. We have a Voc Rehab Facebook group that has nearly 40,000 members. where we've been helping veterans become doctors and lawyers and business executives. And it's a great, great group, good resource, veteran readiness and employment. When it's done right, when it's done wrong, it's catastrophic. But when it's done right, veterans like myself can really change trajectories, and I really am thankful for that. God's been good to me as far as that goes. We're real fortunate that good old Yah up there has been taking care of me. So we hope that in the future, be in prayer about this. Reach out to these four senators here. I've kept their phone numbers up at the top of the screen this entire time. Call them. Try each of the numbers until you get through. Tell them that you're concerned if you are. If you think she's a great candidate, and maybe I missed the window here, or missed the boat, that's okay too. Call them and tell them, hey man, I think she's great. This Kraus guy doesn't know what he's talking about. But if you are concerned and you're watching this, definitely reach out. I know that within social media and my reach, after I started covering this, I've noticed an appreciable drop in my Facebook reach. And we've noticed that a company from Ukraine has been using what appears to be negative SEO against my website, which has the effect, of course, of diminishing reach. And it affects my business practices, which is illegal. So I may have to litigate tortious interference with business, and that could be fun, because they're in Ukraine, so I'm not sure how to do that. But there may be just again, it's just part of this layer. Peel it back and try to see how deep it goes. So anyway, having said all that, take a look at stuff on the blog. Fox News just wrote about this over the weekend, or published a story about it. And until next time, love you guys. God bless. Just share this if you care. And if you don't care, okay, don't share. That's fine. I understand. But if you do care, man, I'll tell you what. We got to do something, guys, because our data is being pimped out. And the veteran data is extremely valuable. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise. The data sets that are in the Vista system that they're trying to migrate over to Oracle right now, in that 15 or $20 billion contract, are that data is extremely valuable. Veterans benefits, though, are being harmed while they're doing that. There's a whole host of other issues coming forward with the IT issues that, including views, but not limited to views, that we're going to be talking about. And our records are I mean, they are pimping us out. These government contractors, back in the day, the VA used to actually run its own data systems and had their own IT folks. This is back in the 90s. And then they got stripped out and developed as public-private partnerships under Clinton. And Reinventing Government was the name of the program, or the initiative in the program that Hillary Clinton had run as the First Lady. And they ripped apart this agency, many others, and got a lot of private interests involved. And while I am a fan of veterans having a right to access, community care, because VA has gotten so bad at how they treat veterans, where they treat veterans as if we're just the burp, and the food is actually just them having a job, and that's what's really important. And I guess why wouldn't that be the case if you're the largest employer of union votes in the federal government? Then your what's going on there does probably matter quite a bit. But for the rest of us, dirty veterans, unfortunately, we're stuck with sucking wind. So anyway, having said that, God bless. Call your senator about this. The tweet handle is right there, like at Cinema or Senator Cinema. Um, uh, Senator Collins. Now, two of these are Republican, one is independent, one is a Democrat. There was a Democrat that actually flipped and voted against her out of Jersey. Menendez, I believe his name is. And, God bless him, for at least doing the right thing. But we got to do something, guys, because our data is out there. And once they get us hooked in all this crap, they're going to come for your families. So it's not just us. Like we're the test run. The federal government has most of their encroachments through veteran sentiment and federalism, and we're seeing that roll out in the advancements of the electronic health records and things like that. And they're trying to create a system for everybody where all your data just lives forever in the cloud, and there is no privacy. And you're just one hack away from having your data stolen and having your entire life turned upside down as we're moving into this new era of digital human, whatever that means. So, just know it's done on our backs. And the more we fight to correct these systems, the more we maintain our integrity, and the more we maintain our standard of living. And we got to fight as veterans against this because it's our stuff, and they're experimenting on us as a population group to drive this forward. And it's, if you think I'm kidding, give me a call sometime. I'm happy to walk you through everything. Like there's a tremendous amount of data out there that supports this. I've been writing about it for 12 years, um, or I don't know, 13 years. So anyway, have a good night, and it's my birthday for another 8 minutes. So I am born on 9/11. So I'm gonna go downstairs and say hi to my lovely wife, and then I'm gonna go to sleep and try to make some calls myself tomorrow. So I really hope that you guys, anyone watching this, just say, hey, dude, your buddy at the Legion, if you talk to anybody, share this and try to get the word out. Tanya Bratcher's bad news. A vote for her is a vote against veteran rights and veteran privacy. I'm convinced of that. That's my opinion. I've looked through enough data and watched, what she's done so far, and she's going to obfuscate and spin. There's just no question about it. There's a reason she's the chosen one, and they're willing to lie to the Senate to get her through. So we got to be real careful moving forward. We got to be proactive, and at the end of the day, we have to stick together and start to push back against these higher ups. And I don't care if they're higher up as a veteran or not. You're either with Wall Street or you're with Main Street, and I think we can tell the difference when it comes to the VA. And I'm definitely a Main Street kind of guy. And the Wall Street pukes. I mean, they're out there just stealing our stuff. So, till next time, take care.